Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another ambush stream, this time on a Tuesday evening. I don't know that I've done one on a Tuesday evening in at least a week, so here we are. Rock me like a hurricane. Yes, I got inspired by a little interaction I had on Twitter today, and I thought I'd take the time to learn something, to understand something a bit more than I did previously in a passing notion. But I'll get to that in a moment. First, who's joining me on this ambush stream of very short notice? North of was first and thus receives the first prize. Congratulations. And Brittany Holland was second and gets the second prize. Bridget, good evening. Tandemar, good evening. Urkele De Stefano, good evening. Simon Willikins, good evening. Funtime Bats, good evening. Attorney Eris, representing the Golden Apple, good evening. Kiro Soldier, good evening. Blakester, good evening. Spoony the Rebel, good evening. Attack Alpaca, good evening. Non-Vitae Rex, good evening. Resolute Germ, good evening. Sabine? No, not Sabine. That's a whole different person. Sabian 187, good evening. And I don't know. I'm sorry. I tried. I'm sorry. Yugi. Can I call you Yugi? If not, I'll try again another time. Hope you're doing good. And Jamie Milquist, good evening. All right. So this requires a little bit of a story. It's not a very long story. It's a very short story. So earlier today on Twitter, as I am wont to do, I saw this. It is a tweet from someone named Caritha Mitchell. Now, how did this end up in my stream? Well, I follow certain figures out there, and sometimes they retweet stuff and strange things come my way. And this was a interesting little tweet. It says, worth considering for how you speak to yourself too. If speaking kindly to plants helps them grow, imagine what speaking kindly to humans can do. Now, in the context of the person who retweeted this, Ibram X. Candy, I was curious to know, and it says Professor Corey up at the top. I was like, who is this person? I don't know who this person is. So I clicked on her profile, and I saw an interesting little posting that, given the message in this tweet, got me curious about this person. And so I looked her up, and I found a publication of hers from 2016. I will read it to you now. One second here while I pull it up on my end for clarity. My name is Caritha Mitchell. I've been surrounded by whites my whole life, and that has not translated into being surrounded by excellence. In fact, the older I get and the more I achieve, the more I see how much American culture lies to create the assumption that whiteness brings excellence. The truth is that our country's standards for white people are so low that most of our problems, including the unrelenting violence against people of color, can be traced to those low standards. It doesn't take much at all for a white person to be considered good. As long as they avoid killing someone themselves, no one is going to demand anything else from them. Whites don't need to do anything decent for anyone, especially not people outside of their own family, and yet everyone will assume that they are good people. Even when whites do undeniably harmful things, American culture explains it away. This is why our society subjects impressive people of color to dehumanization that a white person who behaves despicably doesn't encounter. You know, like when Dylan Roof killed 9 black people in their church and the police gave him a bulletproof vest and bought him lunch. As Dr. David Leonard puts it so well, American institutions literally manufacture innocence for whites. And when I read that, I thought, golly, that's awfully judgmental. And so in my tweet, I said, in relation to her message about imagine what speaking kindly to humans can do, I said, though obviously some people deserve kinder words than others do based on their skin color. Well, surprisingly enough, she responded to me. I know. And here we go. I take seriously the responsibility to address violence, and there is great violence in how white mediocrity operates every moment of every day. And I said, right, white people are inherently bad. I get that. So say something kind about them. Imagine how they might grow as a result. And that's where the conversation, such as it was, ended, as far as I know. She hasn't blocked me on Twitter, and she hasn't replied yet to that. So I I don't know if she ever will. But I got curious. I did not know what white mediocrity was supposed to mean. And so I looked it up, and lo and behold, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, something, she did an interview where apparently she's going to explain it to us. And so here we are on an ambush stream where I'm going to try to learn something, and perhaps you will learn something too. And perhaps together we can grow. Unless you're white, in that case, you're just, inherently unimpressive, I guess, or something. Anyway, a few more hellos, and then I will get into it. Roasted Opinions. Good evening. Who else is here? Oh, Attorney Era says, I was looking for something to watch and was ambushed by a Scribe light stream. Good timing. Yes, it's the only kind of timing I have. Noah Sentio, if I didn't already say hello. Ruffle, you did your best, and you can call me Don. Don, okay, that makes it easier. I appreciate it. I'm more than happy to try to learn how to say it correctly. Unlike some TEDx talks that have told me that if I make any kind of mistake in trying to pronounce a name I'm not familiar with, that makes me inherently an evil person. I legitimately try to get something down. Just ask Ercole De Stefano, or Bruno Montiero, or T.C. Lachance, or Bridget. It happens. Keldrig, good evening. Ryan R., good evening. Who else is here? Faye Alex, good evening. Kashol, good evening. C Monkey, good evening. Ostzan, good evening. Anybody else before I go on? Miranda Stone, good evening. And The Voice in the Walls. Sounds like a title to an H.P. Lovecraft novelette or something. More like The Rats in the Walls. Anyway, so yes, let's learn the definition of white mediocrity. This video is only about just under 13 minutes long, so basically your standard TEDx length. And it's a part one, apparently. I didn't get part two, so hopefully the introduction is enough to tell us what we need to know. And let's proceed.
You lit us up the last time you were here, and the ideas that you were talking about with know your place, aggression, white mediocrity, I think for a number of us, it was just so empowering to have someone give us permission to be able to name these things. A lot of times we...
Okay, need a moment here. Subtitle for those of you not watching directly. Professor Coretha, I hope I'm saying that right, Coretha Mitchell on white mediocrity and quote unquote know your place aggression, part one. And this comes from the Lurie Daniel Favors show on Sirius XM. It doesn't give us a date of when this came out. I think it was YouTube told me it was like something like a year ago or thereabouts. So that's as much information as I have. Holy cow. Or holy cats, as the case may be. Alan Thyler, thank you so much for the heart holding dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox.
Wow-wee! Wow! Wow!
Thank you so much, Alan. It's very generous of you. Hope you're having a good Tuesday, and hope you enjoy the show for what it is.
We are experiencing something. We know something is off, but you giving us permission to name it, to call it what it is, and to be able to then formulate a response around it was just extraordinarily helpful. For those who might have missed that initial conversation, can you talk with us about what you mean when you say know your place aggression?
Oh, I was hoping for white mediocrity, but okay. Know your place aggression. Is that a kind of microaggression? Is that a kind of talking down to, or interpreting being talked down to, or diminishing one's importance or place in society or something?
Oh, absolutely. So I define know your place aggression as the flexible, dynamic array of forces.
The flexible, dynamic array of forces
that answer the achievements of marginalized groups such that their success brings aggression as often as praise.
Such that their success brings aggression as often as praise. Okay.
So I won't try to claim that we only get aggression.
Okay. So, okay.
But we're going to get that aggression at least as often as the praise.
Okay. So when someone who isn't white succeeds in something, they're going to get pushback or immediate, let's see, animosity simply on the basis that they succeeded where a white person did not. Is that it?
And the crucial way to think about this is that the success of a straight white man doesn't inspire aggression.
The success of a straight white man doesn't inspire aggression. In who? For what reason? May I call your attention? Just as one example. I mean, I can probably think of several. Donald Trump. I mean, okay, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk. I mean, I could go on. I don't know if you know about these very obscure figures in modern times, but certainly nothing that they've ever done that could be marked as a genuine success has ever been met with aggression. Joe Biden, for example. I don't know. Never.
It just inspires respect,
Donald Trump.
acceptance, and
Donald Trump. Joe Biden. George W. Bush. I mean, I keep thinking of politicians, but I'm trying to think of like straight white men who have succeeded in something, and boy howdy, they were met with nothing but praise for their accomplishment. Okay.
into the professional fold, those kinds of expected outcomes. But anyone who's in a marginalized group, their success is going to inspire a backlash.
Right. No backlash has ever befallen a straight white man who has succeeded in something. Every marginalized individual who's ever succeeded has only faced backlash. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know it's low-hanging fruit here, but Donald Trump on the one hand, Barack Obama on the other. I mean, as far as just like votes received and praise received, Nobel Prize and so on. Yeah, Barack Obama didn't receive any praise. Backlash? Sure, but it wasn't just backlash, was it?
Whether it is physical or discursive, right? Last time we talked about discursive violence being best exemplified by a stereotype.
You mean like white mediocrity? I don't know. I'm just taking you at your word.
Right? That it's a symbolic kind of violence that I'm walking in that store and the stereotype has more power than I do to determine how I am treated.
Okay. So, sorry. Hold on a second here. I clicked the wrong thing. I was trying to be very smooth in my transitions of things, but I'm not that smooth. I'm actually not very cool. I apologize. So we're talking about stereotypes. Just to let's see. It doesn't take much at all for a white person to be considered good. As long as they avoid killing themselves, no one is going to demand anything else of them. I've been surrounded by whites my whole life, and that has not translated into being surrounded by excellence. In fact, the older I get and the more I achieve, the more I see how much American culture lies to create the assumption that whiteness brings excellence. Those kinds of stereotypes, those kinds of discursive acts, maybe. I mean, when a white person walks into the grocery store, what do you think of them?
That is symbolic, but it is also violent. It makes my behavior a non-issue, and I get treated as if I am some, figure that someone has in their head.
You mean like inherently mediocre, inherently non-excellent?
I call that discursive violence. It's a way for us to understand how the symbolic and language itself can exert violent pressure.
Okay. All right.
And, when we hear that, and every time you say it, I get a little chill.
I mean, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
When we hear that, one of the things that instantly pops into mind is I walk into a store, a white person sees me, and they are instantly suspicious.
Because you're a mind reader and you know exactly what they're thinking, because obviously if they're white, they must be suspicious of you because you're black. Obviously.
And yet we have other scenarios and situations where I walk into a store and I'm seen and I'm determined to be suspicious. And yet my suspicions or the person who's viewing me as suspicious.
Because again, you know what they're thinking. You're psychic.
It's not white. Perhaps they look just like me.
Well, so what do you do then?
Perhaps they're a bank teller.
Perhaps they are a bank teller.
And I am a black man who is a very wealthy black man, a very successful black man. And perhaps this bank teller sees me.
Perhaps.
Attempting to take out a lot of money that we typically don't necessarily associate with black skin.
Who's we, lady? We don't necessarily associate with blacks. Okay, I don't know. What kind of bank account do you assume to be possessed by someone on the basis of their skin color? You want to go back to discursive violence again?
For better or worse. And perhaps that bank teller who is not white, she looks like me, she is perhaps from my community, but she too might engage in some of these behaviors. They might, sure, I suppose, if they're a raging racist or colorist or whatever you want to call them, sure, it might happen. All right, well, what do you do then? That discursive violence. Talk with us about what it means when know your place aggression is based on white supremacist ideals, but they are being filtered through the black gaze.
Oh, because someone who is racist of their own race, let's say, obviously it's not their fault. It's white supremacy that's pushed them there. Even then, they are blameless for their own thoughts. They're not responsible for their own thinking. But okay, and honestly, until I hear what our speaker has to say in response to this, the look on her face looks to me like one of confusion. Like, how am I going to answer this question? But I don't know. How do you answer that question?
Oh, wow. You just gonna go there.
She went there.
You just gonna go there.
Ryan Coogler gave us a perfect example of this. For those of you who were like, where did that example come from?
Ryan Coogler, the director of Black Panther. Okay, if you say so.
Ryan Coogler experiences this. He goes to take $12,000 out of the bank. He has his withdrawal slip. He puts in his debit card. He types in the PIN number, gives over the ID, and then he finds himself in handcuffs because the perception was he was there to rob a bank.
Okay, I hadn't heard that story. Anybody hear that story before? That's a new one to me. Thank you, Keldrig, so much. It's amazing what is considered violent these days. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. Harsh words. Or not even harsh words, but words you're assuming someone is thinking in their mind when you walk into a room. Or, stereotyping somebody is a terrible thing unless you're stereotyping in the right way towards the right people. I don't know. But thank you, Keldrig. If anybody has an opportunity and can check, I'd never heard that story before. Ryan Coogler was arrested at a bank on suspicion of bank robbery because he was making a withdrawal. Is that a true story? I hadn't. If I'd heard that one, I've forgotten it. But if that happened, I'd love to know. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So she went there. Sorry, I'll back up a little bit.
Perception was he was there to rob a bank. But that was with a black bank teller. Professor Mitchell, talk with us about this.
So wait. Ryan Coogler goes into a bank and a black bank teller, if I get my B words all mixed up, a black bank teller called the police on him because she thought he was there to rob the bank. Is that right? Okay, I'm learning so much today that I hadn't any idea I was going to learn. Also, Rib Rascal, good evening. Mr. E, good evening. Chicago Mike, good evening. And Tier Alexander, the gentleman leech, as P Dog Knight like to say, although personally I like lich. That's how I learned it. Wrath of the Lich King, etc. Mr. E is giving me a link. Hold on. I'm going to look at this off tab here for a second. Black Panther director Ryan Coogler speaks out after being mistakenly suspected of attempted robbery. Okay. Ryan Coogler was detained by police in January. This is back from March of 2022. Okay, January of 2022, after being mistaken for a bank robber. The Black Panther director was in Atlanta attempting to make a withdrawal from his account with Bank of America. The teller received an alert on his account, according to the police report obtained by CNN, because the amount was more than $10,000. Okay, the teller notified her superior that she thought Coogler was trying to rob the bank, and 911 was called. Oh, so it wasn't his skin color, it was the amount he was attempting to withdraw. I don't know why that would make a flag on his account. Coogler had written a note on the back of his withdrawal slip stating that he wanted the money to be counted discreetly given the amount, according to the report. Oh, okay. When police arrived, two of Coogler's colleagues who were waiting for him in a parked vehicle outside the bank were detained and placed in the back of a police car. Coogler was placed in handcuffs while police investigated the call. He was released shortly after they verified his identity, the police report states. Quote, "The situation should never have happened. However, Bank of America worked with me and addressed it to my satisfaction, and we have moved on," Coogler said in a statement to Variety. CNN has reached out to Coogler's representative for comment. Quote, "We deeply regret that this incident occurred. It never should have happened, and we have apologized to Mr. Coogler." That is a bizarre set of events. All right. So, yeah, withdrawing more than $10,000 at a time, I suppose that might put up a flag just to double check, depending. I don't know what bank procedures are, but how the teller then decided that he was trying to rob the bank. It's kind of odd to be asking to have the money counted discreetly, writing that on the back of a slip. Why don't you just say that to the teller? I don't get that. But anyway, okay. Well, that's bizarre. Holy cats, Derek LaRue, thank you so much, and good evening to you. I'm doing my Dr. Seuss bit there for a second. Thank you so much, Derek. Hope you're having a good evening. So yeah, apparently that is a true story. Ryan Coogler was handcuffed briefly under some crazy suspicion that he was robbing a bank by making a withdrawal. But all right, thank you, Derek, so much. Emperor W.R. Costin, good evening. All right, so that story was true. Does that justify classifying people on the basis of their race as having diminished value? I don't think so, but let's hear her out.
Thank you for this example. What you're making me first do is go back to the beautiful way that you allowed me to begin when I visited you the last time, which is you said, you're talking in terms of Black literary theory. Tell us about what that is.
Black literary theory. I feel like I'm back in English class.
So the thing that I'll underscore here is that what's crucial about my research and how I approach things is that I'm invested in discourses and practices.
Discourses and practices. Okay.
I am invested in making sure we have the tools we need to be able to interpret discourses and practices.
Okay. Interpret discourses and practices. Apparently, if I'd seen whatever the first visit she had on the show was, I'd have a better idea, but I don't. So we're stuck with this.
Words and deeds. Yeah. What is most commonly said and done? So understanding that is exactly how we can understand what happened in that scenario, right?
We can understand what happened in that scenario. Okay, well, I can't wait to hear that. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk, for the happy, dancy, smiley, lovely Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
That is a Kiever Dam Dog Cat Fox. Thank you so much, Mr. Tickle Trunk. Hope you're having a good evening. Also, Texas Attorney General Secret Agent. Good evening. The Messianic Militant. Good evening. Hope you're doing well. And Okie Native, did I say good evening? Hello, Okie Native. Good evening to you too. Good evening to you too. All right, so how do we understand the scenario of Ryan Coogler being marked as a bank robber by a black bank teller while he was making a withdrawal of money?
Right? That we are all susceptible to the discourses and practices that have shaped our cultural spaces.
Okay. Now, maybe CNN is dropping some kind of details there or something. And if I didn't say thank you, Mr. E, for giving me the link to that. Nothing in that story said anything about the man's skin color. It said he was withdrawing an amount over $10,000, which apparently already lights some kind of flag in their system, in cash at once. And he wrote a message on the back of a withdrawal slip that may have been suggestive to a bank teller who was over paranoid about things. I don't know. It's kind of an odd thing to do, to say, please count the money discreetly so nobody sees it. You could just I'm just imagining when I go to the bank to make a withdrawal in front of a bank teller, I'm the only one standing in front of the bank teller, and I could have a discreet, low voice conversation with the bank teller, like, I'm withdrawing a lot of money. Could you make sure you count it quietly, something like that, rather than write a note on the back. Anyway, what about that story had anything to do with skin color? I don't know. But we're just assuming, for the sake of argument, I guess, that it did, because our speaker is assuming it did, because the black bank teller was also racist because of white supremacy, I guess. Thank you, Keeverdam. Nice. I come in to hear my sound clip. Well, timing is everything, and my timing is always good. And thank you so much, kid. That's very generous of you. Thank you. Hope you're having a good evening. All right. Sorry. Let's get back to the education.
Whether that cultural space is a workplace, whether that cultural space is a nation, we do not get to be made out of Teflon just because we have melanin.
What? You're correct. You're not inherently made out of Teflon because you okay. Should you be made out of Teflon because you have melanin?
So what is most commonly said and done will have an effect. Why? Because we are human, Larry. We don't get to just have the racism and sexism and homophobia and ableism and all of those things bounce off of us because of our melanin.
Right. So because you're human, if there's racism in the world, you have no ability to then not be racist or sexist or homophobic. Now, okay, and I'm not being facetious here, but just trying to understand this. So, because there are bad ways of thinking in the world, you are not to be held responsible for your own agency or your own decisions, because there are bad things in the world and you cannot avoid absorbing and reflecting them back. Is that how I'm supposed to take that?
We are human, so we are also susceptible to believing the lies because we are bombarded with them.
Okay, so by extension, you're accusing that bank teller in the Ryan Coogler story of being racist. Not being oversensitive, not being paranoid, not misinterpreting his actions that day or something, but specifically, she took the action that she did. She called the police because he was black. If it had been a white man doing the exact same things under the exact same circumstances, she would have let it pass. You know that for a fact. That bank teller was racist. But it's not her fault that she was racist. She is a victim of racism and is therefore redirecting that victimhood onto Ryan Coogler because white supremacy. Did I get that correct?
This is why it's important to understand the power of discourses and practices, of words and deeds, of what is most commonly said and done. Everything in our nation has informed us that what she did would make sense. You have to work actively to unlearn that.
No, reading the facts of the case, at least as what's CNN presented. I don't know if there's more details to it, but just taking it on face value of what CNN said. 2 factors at hand. Withdrawing cash over $10,000, which might be just a natural, like, heads up in a bank, just in case. And then him writing a perhaps misinterpreted note on the back of the withdrawal slip and sliding it to the teller without saying anything. I mean, these 2 things combined might have caused enough suspicion in the teller to think that something untoward was happening. Now, whether that was reasonable or not, given the circumstances, whether the teller was being apparent, again, I don't know. But from the facts that were there, maybe I could understand it. I don't know. But it seems a bit bizarre to me that that was their reaction. Of course, you know, maybe this lady had been through a bank robbery before. Maybe she'd had slipped to her a note from a bank robber before, and she just has a trigger warning. I don't know. But on its face, it sounded bizarre to me. But okay. All right. Sorry. I'm getting off in the weeds again. I'm just trying to, again, associate this story with what she's talking about.
And this is the other thing I have to say to you. This is why it is so powerful. We talked last time too about the ritual. Mm-hmm. This is why it's so powerful that you end your show every time with those 3 things.
What?
And number 2 is where I'm going right now.
Please do not go to number 2 on the air.
Right? You say that I need y'all to have that Harriet Tubman, Marcus Garvey, Nat Turner love so that you can learn to love Black people more than you have been taught to hate us.
Wow. That's how she closes out her show? Okay. I mean, if you say so.
That is crucial. We gotta learn it. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be automatic. And so when you understand the power of discourses and practices, what is most commonly said and done, then you understand why it is that you are naming the fact that we have to learn how to love because we have been taught to hate each other.
Right. So again, no one is responsible for their own actions or thoughts that may vilify or diminish a Black person, even if you are a Black person, because you at the same time are just a victim of white supremacist thinking. So you're not responsible for your own thoughts or action, your own discourse and procedures. What was it again she said? I forget. Process. Boy, oh boy, I'm learning so much. Thank you again, Mr. Tickletrunk. So it is so incredibly sad these people live in reality. No, I mean, I'm happy to hear stuff like this because it needs a platform. You need to be able to hear something that sounds absolutely ridiculous, rather than it being, kept off in the distance somewhere. I'm happy to listen to it because I want to understand. When I see someone's published books or essays or is a professor of some kind, and is teaching something called white mediocrity. I want to know what that is. I want to know if it's going to be the next white fragility. I mean, that was one of the driving forces of me looking at TEDx and the sort of weird ideas that come from homegrown TEDx talks and things, is to find that next big thing that's not quite a coffee table book yet, but could be. White fragility was a concept that was shopped around on the fringes till it took off. So I'm always looking for that next white fragility. Is white mediocrity the next one? I don't know. We'll find out, I suppose. Thank you, Mr. Tickletrunk.
And ourselves.
Sorry, let me back up. I cut her off unintentionally.
Because we have been taught to hate each other and ourselves. That, to my mind, is the power of discourses and practices, what is most commonly said and done.
Discourses and practices, that's what it meant. I got myself confused. Thank you again, Mr. Tickletrunk. I mean, I feel bad she believes she's hated off. Oh, I see. Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, they both said something to the effect of, I walk into a store and obviously somebody looks at me and is suspicious of me. I mean, they just know without actually speaking to this person or anything else that simply having being looked at sideways. Obviously, that person is thinking a particular thing, and they know what they're thinking. They're aware that they are hated simply for looking the way that they are, and they know that the person across the room is hating them for looking the way that they are. They know that of that person because that person is white, or that person is not white, but they just looking at them, they know. Yeah, I with this and so many other things, I really wonder. Not that I would want to know personally, but I have to try to imagine like what it must be like to move through the world if you honestly think this way about other people or about yourself. It must be terrible to really think that way, to worry that much about what other people think, or to assume to know that everybody around you is suspicious or hating of you or something. It's just not a fun way to live. Not a fun way to live.
That right there, you gave me chills. And
boy, oh boy, that seems to happen a lot.
Use my own words against me because I got chilled off of hearing you say it. So that I got to be honest with you. I have always believed that one of the most powerful weapons we have is the cultivation of Black love.
Okay.
And I don't just mean Black love and, he found the king found his queen and the queen found her king and they gonna sit on there. No. I mean, that's good. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know how to get you right at this point.
It's good when one has that type of Black love, but that's not the type of love I'm talking about. I'm talking about the type of Black love that would say, I, a young Harriet Tubman, want to run away. And maybe I want to bring my beloved husband with me, or maybe I want to run away with my brothers, but neither of them, those group of people, neither my husband, nor my brother's first husband, nor my brothers are willing to take the journey. Or maybe the brothers come with me and we take the journey, but they're so fearful that we end up going back because they couldn't quite see freedom as committedly as, or they were not as committed to the same vision of freedom that I had.
I'm confused about where this metaphor is going.
Now, a lot of us would have been like, these trifling brothers, I don't try to get them off this plantation. I don't have a plan. I knew where to follow the North Star. I knew what the river was telling me. I knew where to go. They didn't want to listen. I got to go next time. And I ain't coming back for them no more because they get on my nerves and they drag me back into slavery.
I honestly I don't know what to say. I'm not even sure where we are right now.
There's this idea that a Harriet Tubman kind of love recognizes that if your brothers drug you back into slavery because of their own fear and their own inability to see freedom, that's not their fault.
That's not their fault. So you're comparing someone being dragged back into slavery as a bank teller getting paranoid and making weird leaps of logic into Ryan Coogler being a bank robber. I guess. I mean, I'm trying to connect the dots here, and it's an uphill battle.
We do not blame someone who does not have a leg for not being able to walk on two legs.
So the bank teller doesn't have a leg? She's disabled by white supremacy?
We provide for them the support that they need so that they will be able to walk and manipulate the ground nimbly enough that they can carry themselves from one place to another. The Harriet Tubman love, one of the reasons I find that to be so compelling is because she was somebody who knew how flawed we had been made. It wasn't our fault, but our circumstances had created a series of flaws within our thinking, within our movement.
Wait. You are not Harriet Tubman. You are not a slave. You've got absolutely no grounds on which to compare yourself or anything in your life to Harriet Tubman. What? Okay.
Each other, and her love for her people was enough to cover for that. You know, in the Christian tradition, we say, what is that phrase? His grace is sufficient for me, or the love of Jesus covers a multitude of sins. That's the type of love that I think we need to tap into when it.
So tell me about white mediocrity. If you're talking about tapping into universal love of one, sorry, no, you're talking about black love. That's right. You can't have love for people. You have to have love for skin colors. No, my mistake. Thank you, Assassin of the Gray. You would think this lady was a United States Marine with her inferiority, persecution, and narcissistic complex. I don't get the reference. Is there something about United States Marines you want to tell us about, Assassin of the Gray? Or are you Army or something? And there's that rival. I don't know. I'm at a loss. Maybe I missed a joke somewhere. It is late. I should probably be in bed already. I'm an old man at this point, getting up at 4 a.m. for work. So, but thank you, Assassin of the Gray. Apparently, Texas Attorney General got it. Whatever it was. I apologize. I'm such a fuddy-duddy. I'm such a fuddy-duddy. Okay. We've got, 4 minutes left of this? Whatever it is? Okay.
Comes to Black love as a weapon. And I do mean weapon, and weaponizing that love element so that we will have enough grace and enough mercy to say, yes, we are a flawed people by conditions that we did not create.
Right. It's everybody's fault but ours. Okay. Assassin of the Gray, I apologize for making you explain the joke to me, but I don't know. I don't come from a military, or at least the military service of my family ended long before I was born. Marines claim no one gives them money, no one gives them gear, no one gives them love, and the bestest ever. Oh, this is how much I know about the attitudes of the various branches of the armed services. All right. Well, thank you, Assassin of the Gray. I'm sure the Army brats or personnel in the chat might have gotten it, and I didn't. But I hope they did. Thank you. All right. Now that I've made myself look completely awkward, let's back up just a little bit because I want to get back to some context here before we close this sucker out. Oh, hit the button.
So that we will have enough grace and enough mercy to say, yes, we are a flawed people by conditions that we did not create. But my love and my commitment to who we are as a people is going to be such that I will create a way for my brothers to come out of slavery, even though the first time I tried it, they drugged me back in. I will create a way for my family members to come out of slavery because even though the first time we tried it, it wasn't successful.
Okay. Now, obviously, just because I was more curious about our guest on this show than I was the host, I don't know what our host's personal history is. I would be decidedly surprised if she or anybody in her immediate family has ever actually experienced slavery. If they have, then I completely walk it back. But I'm just having to guess that whatever she is talking about has nothing to do with nothing. And besides which, she's not speaking for anybody other than herself. Anyway.
My love for them recognizes it's not their fault.
It's not their... Okay, well, if they were actually slaves, then more likely than not, yeah, you're right, it's not their fault. But that's not what you were talking about. You're comparing what you said, and I don't know if this detail was in the CNN thing, but you guys said, our speakers here, you said that a black female bank teller blew the whistle on Ryan Coogler and had him, by extension, put into handcuffs under suspicion of potential bank robbery, except he wasn't robbing the bank. He was making withdrawal in a very, I think, kind of an awkward way, but otherwise didn't actually do anything bank robbery worthy. And you are, cleansing her of her sin because she couldn't have known what she was doing because she's black and she has no will of her own. She sees a black man attempting to make a withdrawal from a bank and immediately thinks bank robber. That's the extension of the metaphor that you're giving us here, as far as I can tell. But now we're going into Harriet Tubman and slavery and stuff.
But a lot of times we are so wounded by our own that we get stuck in that space, Dr. Mitchell. How do we how do we manage to be aware of that and create pathways of opportunity that can help us navigate that space so it doesn't become a stumbling block?
I don't know that I could try to decipher that much word salad on the fly, but I guess our speaker will give it a shot.
It's so beautiful. And thank you for how you've laid that out.
Really?
You know, I think that part of what you've laid out, part of what it makes me think about is we talked about the power of practices last time.
I really should have found the first time that they spoke. Apparently that was where all the good stuff was.
And part of what I emphasized is how powerful it has been for me to look around myself and see how not impressive white people are, even though they are celebrated as being excellent.
Donald Trump.
And what I will admit to you is that part of what that has done is it allows me to see the fullness of Black people and other people of color, because it has taken away that anxiety that we are taught to have about, well, if I, kind of support this person of color a little too eagerly, they may end up showing me up.
What? Okay, well, obviously I cannot claim to be a person of color, so I was never taught to be wary of supporting someone else on the basis of their skin color on the chance that they could show me up. I guess I missed that day in kindergarten or something. So I don't know what she's talking about. Maybe somebody out in the audience does.
If they end up down the road not quite coming up to the standard, what I want you to understand is that because I see how lackluster white people are, that fear is completely gone from me, because I notice how exceptional the people of color are all the time.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, once you diminish an entire racial demographic as being inherently deficient, right, everybody else looks great when you're being racially supremacist. It's funny how that works. I mean, it's the simplest of maths, but yeah, that's how that happens.
The chances that that person of color in that space is mediocre are really, really low.
Oh, well, of course. Did I ever put that as a stinger on here? Did I ever do that? I didn't, did I? God dang it. I really need to. All right. Well, in the absence of that,
Right?
Yeah, we'll just do that. Right. I mean, because of the inherent unexceptional nature of white people, everybody else looks amazing.
Right?
Okay. So there we go.
And so I've gotten rid completely of that fear, because I know how much more they had to come up to a standard to be in the position in the first place.
Oh, okay. All right. So hating white people dispels your fear of being excited for the achievements of non-white people. Is that, do I have that right?
We all know that those objective standards come out the most when the person who is being evaluated is not a straight white man. As long as they're white, everything is all about a perfect fit, and, they just get along with it. Like, they just get all these 4th, 5th, and 6th chances. So
straight white men, always with those 4th, 5th, 6th chances.
So what I want to admit to you is that it is the practice of seeing white mediocrity and white villainy that has allowed me to recalibrate so that I could actually appreciate how exceptional my Black and non-Black people of color colleagues are, wherever they are, in whatever arena they're in.
Right. So vilifying and mediocritizing an entire race where you don't have to think about them as individuals. You just know that they are lesser than you because of their skin color. That makes everybody else who you appreciate more so because of their skin color or in opposition to one particular skin color, that makes life so much clearer. I get you. I understand.
So to my mind, that's part of how I got to that place, that unlearning the hatred that you're talking about. That's part of how I did it because
obviously you unlearned hatred by vilifying skin color. Yeah, okay.
as I saw, wait a second, they are exceptional. And here's the other thing. If they happen to have survived and been mediocre, I say, oh, wow, finally a little equality.
Okay. I mean, I honestly did not know what to expect. Random Twitter interaction. But here we are. I'm learning quite a bit about our speaker. Not about reality, not about how I should see the world or should assess people, but at least about our speaker.
That a person of color could be not exceptional and could still have a chance? Well, shoot, that's what's happening with the white people all the time. So, wow, a little equality. Good to see.
You know what? in a completely different context, that's how I feel about Black movies that kind of suck. Like, we ain't all got to have a Wakanda movie. Like, everybody Black doesn't have to be an Oscar winner. Sometimes we can have mediocre movies that just make you snicker a little bit. And it's okay. Everything, it's all right to just have average in Blackness. We don't always have to be superb, excellent, overwhelming. So I know that was not what you were exactly talking about, but
what I don't even know what's going on now. This is whatever this is so far afield from how either I operate in the world or assess things. It just, like I said before, I can't. It challenges me. It really shows the poverty of my imagination that I cannot imagine what it must be like to move through the world with this mindset. It must be absolutely exhausting.
That is one of the reasons I have a little grace for corny Black movies. But
okay, well, that was the end of part one. Again, this was just a segment of a longer talk or Zoom call or whatever it was. So there you go. That is, aside from that brief Twitter interaction earlier today, that is my first introduction, I should say, to Corintha Mitchell. Do I have that right? Or Corintha? Hold on. Make sure I try to get this correctly. And if I get it wrong, I apologize. Coretha Mitchell. Coretha Mitchell, a professor of, or a doctor. She was cited as a doctor in this. I don't know what she's a professor of or where she works or what she's a doctor of, but she's written several books. And the subject of one of them was white mediocrity and know your place aggression. And we got a little taste of, I guess, what that mindset is with this interview. So there you go. That's the stream for the most part. I'll take a few more comments or hellos here real quick, and then I'll wrap up because I do have to get to bed. Angela Arriaga, good evening to you. Rib Rascal, Boomerang is my favorite Black movie. Eddie Murphy. That's a good movie. A good soundtrack, too. Wasn't that Boyz II Men on there? If I'm not mistaken, I might. Was it End of the Road? Oh, to the end of the road, still I can't let go. It's unnatural. You belong to me. I belong to you. It's been a long time, very long time since I've heard that song. I'm amazed I remember that much. Let's see. Faye Alex, you have to bring someone down to the dirt for you to be comfortable. Fucking weird, man. It's like I only feel good about myself when I completely vilify and hate a whole swath of other people I've never met. Ta-da! Jamie Melquist, I can see why she's a Kendi fan. Yeah, tell me about it. I mean, especially since, as we know, white people are alien creatures from another planet. They're not actually human. Let's see. Faithless, just imagine if white people wrote the same books with the races reversed. Yeah, just take the entire script of her sort of final soliloquy there and swap black for white in there and just see how that would come across to anybody with half a brain. Good Lord. Derek Lou, how long is the whole? I don't know. This is it was split up on the the host's YouTube channel. So if I wanted to do more of that, I'd have to go search for the other parts. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's at least half an hour, maybe. I don't know. A Sirius XM show can go on for a couple hours, but I'm assuming like an hour at the most. So, I mean, if people are really interested in me finding more parts of this talk or her previous visit, if it's available online somehow, I'll try to do that. But let me know in the comments or over on the Discord. Let's see. Anything else? Peter, openly, proudly racist professor. Too bad people aren't fired for that anymore. Well, I mean, just for dating this stream slightly, there's quite a hubbub going on in the some of the universities and their presidents after they were asked about anti-Semitism. Some have faced the wrath of their own words, and some are being protected. It's a very interesting thing happening at the top of academia the last few days, but that's a whole other conversation. Also, good evening, Kenny on Catpiss. Good evening to you. And anyway, guys, I apologize. I really need to call it short, wrap it up, and get myself into bed, for tomorrow comes early at 4 a.m. But before I go, for those of you that are not already a member of the Discord server, well, now is your chance to become a member, because in the chat, I'm putting a link to the Discord server. All you have to do is click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you have to give the secret word. The secret word will tell me and my moderators that you actually watch the show and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement of joining the Discord server. And today's secret word is Harriet Tubman. That was apparently a very key element to this presentation. So there you go. Just say, hello, Harriet Tubman, and I'll know that you're on there. Now, if you happen to join in the next 10, 15 minutes or something, it's possible if I'm not there or one of my moderators isn't there, you might not become a member till tomorrow morning when I get up, because I'm going to be going to bed here pretty quick. So if you do go in there and say hello, have some patience. If you don't become a member right away officially, I'll do my best to get to you as soon as I can. But with that, everybody, programming note, Thursday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, TED Excellence. Next TED Excellence, I have some options in front of me. I'm looking at them. We'll see what's posted tomorrow, because Wednesday is always a good day for new TEDx's to be posted, but it's coming that day. And beyond that, Sunday stream at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Sundays. Look forward to that. Also, little distant, might be this week, might be next week, might be at the beginning of the year. Not sure yet. Got to figure out scheduling. The next episode of Living on Borrowed Crime is in process of being scheduled. Fingers crossed. Knock Formica with a relatively well-known channel. I won't tell any stories out of school till it's all lined up, but just keep your eyes open for that in the near future. But everyone, thank you for joining me for this ambush stream. Hope you enjoyed it for what it was. We might revisit this subject again in the near future. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. And everybody who donated, please thank yourselves. I don't know what I was about to say. Thank you so much for your generosity, especially at this time of year. It is very much appreciated. And just know that all things considered, I am paying it forward as I'm able to, because of the season specifically, but also because you guys are just so generous as time goes on. So before I talk myself into a corner, everyone, thank you again for joining me. Hope you all have a good rest of your Tuesday evening. Hope you are all safe and well. If you are not well, please get well soon. And I'll talk to you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.